Hello, I'm Titanic Spider, and if you didn't know, I also stream over on Twitch, so feel free to come and hang out, or even join in on some matches. I'll make sure to post the link down below. In this video, I will be going over a basic 40-minute treaty boom of Sweden. I will be using a basic Mercenary deck. On screen, you will see two decks. On the left will be your regular Mercenary deck, and on the right will be the Natives Mercenary deck. As you can see, they aren't much different. For the Natives deck, you just remove the Trample Tactics card in Age 3 and replace it with the Native Warrior card. In this video, I will use the No Natives deck, but the boom itself is still the same. So let's just get right into it. All 40-minute Sweden booms are going to be roughly the same. You're going to want to focus on getting all 20 torps out as soon as possible. After all your villagers are done gathering the starting food crates, you're going to want to move them all over straight to hunt to ensure you have enough food gathering for the next upcoming villagers. And every new villager that comes out will go directly to wood. The only time you would move your villager off of wood at the beginning is if you don't find enough coin treasures. You will want to start by placing 2 torps first, and then you want to get the marketplace. If you have a mine close enough to trees, even better, make sure you prioritize that first, as that will gather you the extra gold that you need. If you do not get the treasures you need, make sure you send a couple of villagers over to the gold as needed. Once you have both torps built, you're still going to send all your new villagers over to the tree lines, specifically to get you the next marketplace and then the rest of your torps. Most civs, you're going to want to look around for the best treasures as much as possible, but for me, I prefer to check the entirety of my base to see where all the trees are, because you're going to want to try and make sure you put your torps closer to the back of the map, as they are your resource generation as well as your housing that you're going to need. So you don't want them in the front of the fight where they can get destroyed and you lose out on resources as well as unit population space. So now we got both torps placed down, we're going to go ahead and build the marketplace and then get right back onto the hunt, while still sending all new villagers over to the trees. If you find any treasures that are llamas, cows, or goats, make sure you go ahead and gather them, as you can let them fatten up and then put them next to torps, and the torps will gather from them once you kill them. So you want to make sure you get hunting dogs as well as gang saw, but don't get gang saw if it's going to cost you villager training time on your TC. If it forces you to have an idle TC, make sure you go ahead and cancel gang saw and get the villager. The villager is going to be far better than the gang saw will be. Again, all your new villagers will be going directly to the tree line, as you want to focus on making sure you get all the torps out before Age 2. You should have about 15 to 18 torps out by Age 2, and that is okay. Again, if you see you have trees next to a mine, make sure you prioritize the mine, as the torp will gather from the trees, the berry bush, as well as the mine, and any dead cattle that you see. Unlike other civilizations, you will not need to send any shipments until Age 3, so you don't have to rush to make sure you pick it, but make sure you pick the correct deck. Later on, the more torps you get, the more trees you're going to gather. You're going to need more than just one villager building torps, so make sure you try and spread them out a little bit. This way you don't have a bunch of traveling villagers when you could be building torps at the time. You want to try and avoid putting too many torps on the same tree, as well as you kind of want to try to avoid putting any extra torps on the tree, but sometimes you don't have any choice and you're going to have to do it if you want to avoid putting them in the front, and that's okay. We want to get about 23 villagers going into Age 2. If done correctly, you should have the food for it by the time you have about 15 to 18 torps. Keep an eye on your hunt. You want to try and keep them as close to the TC as possible, this way your villagers aren't traveling too much. You don't need to get placer mines until you have all 20 torps, as I would slow you down from getting all your torps out. So you will be going into age 2 without placer mines, and that's okay. Now that I have 23 total villagers in production, I can just sit here and focus on getting enough wood for all the torps. You might need to move a couple of villagers over to food if you didn't get enough food treasures, just to ensure that you get the food required for age 2. It'll slow you down on torp production, but that's okay. You want to try and avoid putting torps at the edge, on the end of the build circle, but sometimes it just can't be avoided if you're trying to avoid putting too many torps together. The reason why you want to try to avoid putting the torps towards the edge: right before battle, you're going to want to have about 3 to 4 walls on the outside protecting your base, and if you have torps here, you're going to be avoiding chopping those trees down. This way you don't end up having idle torps sitting around with no trees to chop. Once you have the 800 food needed, you're going to want to age up with a naturalist with 2 settlers and 2 fattened cows. The reason for this is obviously the 2 extra settlers, but the cows can be killed next to the torps, and the torps will gather from them, as well as the gold mines, the berry bush, and the trees. As you can see, we started going to age 2 with only 16 torps down, but that's okay. You're going to get the rest of them out, and then once they're out, you're going to go ahead and get placer mine from the marketplace. Once you have all torps placed and being built, you're going to want to take all your villagers off and place them onto gold, as you will be needing that to go into age 3. Your torps will gather the rest of the wood that you need until age 5, so you no longer need to gather any wood. Make sure you get placer mines going, and then all you have to do is just micro your units to gather the food and gold necessary to get into age 3. Since you do have 20 torps down gathering berry bushes from you, you're going to want to put more emphasis on the gold mines than the food itself. If you can kill the hunts near the torps will also help gather it, which will also increase your resource production of food. It is okay to have a little downtime, but as you can see, like I said, you're going to get 2 cows. Make sure you place them near torps as close as possible to ensure that they get picked up once they're fattened and that you kill them. For age 3, you can choose either age up very fast or covered wagon. That all depends on your personal preference. I personally prefer to choose covered wagon, as it gives me the extra 500 wood saved up to get the marketplace upgrades. And at this point, you're going to want to micro your units for age 4 as well. So make sure you switch some of your settlers off of gold and put them onto food. At this point, you're going to want to try and make sure you keep all the hunts as close as possible, but you're going to want to still prioritize food, as you will have 3 TCs down producing villagers, so you're going to want to focus on food. At this point, you will no longer need the log flume upgrade, as you will not be chopping trees till later on. You will be upgrading it closer to age 5, but make sure you keep your explorer close by, somewhere near a gold mine or some hunts. This way you can build a TC there. As you can see, I got both the market upgrades going, and thanks to the torps, I will still have enough wood to build the extra TC with my explorer. Normally in every match you would go and you would start exploring your opponent's base and grab treasures that they missed, but I am against a computer and I don't want it to be unfair, as often they miss a lot of treasures, so I'm just not going to go over and take any of theirs. So at this point I'm not going to be doing much with my explorer. See, as you can see, both market upgrades are done, and now the explorer is in position to build the next TC. Try to place your but at this point you're just going to make sure you control your settlers as needed to gather for age 4. But now that you're in age 3, you're going to want to start with a berry bush as well as refrigeration. As you can see, I have enough to go into age 4, so I'm going to go ahead and get the fortress upgrade. This way I can use it to protect natives or place it wherever I want. The most important age up is going to be the age 5 age up. You want to make sure you don't mess up and make sure you get the mercenary upgrade. But at this point, now that we're going to age 4, we're going to save the shipments and we're just going to micro our units until we have the food and gold required to go into age 5. Even though you have the torps gathering your food, you still want to focus more heavily on food, as you do have 3 TCs building you villagers at all times. With the excess wood that you're gathering, you want to make sure you get your church as well as your saloon down, as they will greatly increase your resources with the gold trickle from the saloon, as well as the experience trickle from the church that will get you extra shipments. When you go into age 4, you're going to want to send the Great Northern Forest first, followed by the 2 factory shipments. The Great Northern Forest will ship extra trees to your torps allowing them to gather more as well. And the factories, you're going to, when you get them, you're going to want to set them to wood, and you're going to keep them there for most of the match.
Jag är på väg. Jag är, jägare. Befäl, gruvarbetare. Hallå? Jägare. Ska ske. Jägare.
After that, you're going to want to focus the rest of your shipments that you get on the gold upgrades, as this is going to be a trade boom where we're going to gather specifically gold and then rush into the highest amount of gold capacity that we can get to ensure for a better trade. So when you age up, make sure you get the Mercenary Outlaw one, since this is going to be a specifically for Mercenary build. You're going to want to make sure you continue to overgather as much gold as possible, but at this point you're going to try and transition over to gold mines as quickly as possible. The reason you want to overgather on gold is this way you can get the upgrade from the capital that increases settler production, as well as the church upgrade that gives you the extra experience. But at this point, now you can go ahead and begin upgrading your wood chopping, while also building all the mills that you're going to be needing. You're going to want to build enough mills to fit most, if not all of your villagers, not mills, estates, to fit most of, if not all of your villagers on them. Again, you want to try and avoid having your villagers chopping the trees that your torps are on. You should now switch your factories over to food to ensure you can continuously produce villagers, as you will be moving most of your villagers over to the estates as soon as possible. As well as you're going to need the food for upgrades as well. So now that you're in age 5, go ahead and make sure you build your capital and get the upgrade to increase the production pace of your villagers. Again, the shipments that you're going to want to get, you're going to want to focus on your your gold gathering shipments, as you'll be aiming for mostly gold up until the last couple minutes of the match. Make sure you check on your cows every once in a while to make sure if they're fat and full enough to kill them or not. But you also want to make sure you get both of the upgrades for wood chopping as well as the gold gathering upgrades. The reason you don't get the food upgrade from the capital is it's not going to be needed, as you will be trading all your gold for food, and you're going to spend most of your fight on gold instead of having anybody on food. But you will want to make sure you build the mills at some point as well, to be prepared for if your fight lasts long enough, you're going to have to transition some settlers over to mills.
Befäl? Snickare.
Obviously, you're going to want to make sure your estates are placed closer to the back, but unfortunately the tree placement where all the torps are kind of prevents that, so you just got to put them placed as best as possible. Once you have all the gold upgrades, you're going to want to focus on your upgrade for fencing school, riding school, case shot, as well as platoon fire and the lifeguard. I know this is a mercenary deck, but with this build you're going to want to save up a lot of gold before you send the mercenaries, as it'll cripple you later on. So you're going to want to fight without the mercenaries at the start for this build, and then get to them eventually. Just remember to never stop building villagers. Once you have all your villagers done being produced, you can go ahead and switch your factories back over to wood after you get all the upgrades that you require from the capital. So now that all villagers are currently in production, I'm going to gather up to the 1,000 food required for the wood chopping upgrade, and then I'm going to switch the factories back over to wood. Or you can go ahead and switch them early, as your torps will get you there as needed, since most of your villagers should be on coin anyway. At this point, now you can begin setting up your forward base however you like to build it, wherever you're going to be fighting, whatever your preference is. At this point, now that we're getting closer and closer to the requirement to trade, I try to keep at least one shipment saved up. This way I don't find myself in a position where I need the shipment to send my trade and then it ends up being too late. At this point, there isn't much more to do other than prepare. You want to try to avoid spending any gold, but it's okay to spend the food that you've got on any upgrades that can that take just food and just wood, but you want as much gold as possible going into the trade. At this point, there isn't much more to do other than making sure you're fully prepared with an arsenal, have your full forward base set up, as well as the walls. I'm not going to go ahead and waste my time on the walls, as this is just a guide, but you would want to try and build around the trees as best as you can, get at least 3 to 4 layers if possible, with an extra base behind. There are many ways you can do this boom, but this is going to be a little different from what most people do. You can either send the trade card early at around 6 to 5 minutes to ensure you have your food and gold and all your upgrades and your military out, or the other style is to do all your upgrades, all your military, everything up until minute 39 and then send the trade and then go from there. But with this guide, I prefer to do the early trade to ensure I get my upgrades and all my military. So by doing the early trade, you don't want to spend any gold at all. So I usually send mine around the 35-minute mark, which gives me just enough time to get all my upgrades and all my military out. As I said, you can go ahead and spend the food and wood as you want. As you continuously gain them, the only resource that matters is that you keep the gold that you've got. The more you have on gold, the better. If you have teammates that can chop wood for you, that's best. But if you're playing single player, even sometimes 2v2, you might need the extra villagers on trees. So at this point, we're not doing anything with these, but we're just getting it all set up. The starting upgrades for the artillery use food and wood, so it is okay to do the artillery upgrades first, but you want to make sure you don't send your upgrades for the cavalry or the infantry. Since all we can do now is just wait, time to go over some things. You will not be sending any of your ranged cavalry, as they are not that strong, so you will be wanting to upgrade your hussars and your Carolines. You will not need to waste any resources for upgrading any of the other infantry or the ranged cavalry. And for your artillery, it's going to be the typical artillery that you get for most civs. You're going to do the culverines, the mortar, and the horse cannons. As I said, you can go ahead and get those out of the way as they take food and wood, but you do not want to get the Imperial upgrade, as it takes 1500 wood and 1500 coin, and you want to save as much coin as possible. This boom you should average about 220,000, but if you wait till the last minute to send the trade, you can easily get 240,000 if you prefer to do it that way. So now with this build, as I said, we're going to be doing mercenaries, but let me explain some other things. Case shot is going to be a very powerful shipment for this deck. You want to make sure you try and get that as soon as possible, as well as it'll make your horse artillery way stronger than normal. Next important is going to be your 10 Caroleans, as it will save you a great deal on resources that you can send over and over again. Since you're only making just the Caroleans from infantry, you'll be saving a lot by sending that card, since it's a free shipment. As well as the 13 Cherokee allies, you can filter in every once in a while. They're not too expensive, and it'll be a nice little overpop to help you push. At this point, all you can do is wait, but you do want to make sure you get a couple of mills out. This way, you also want to try and keep them at the back, but this way you'll have them prepared for if you do need to go ahead and switch some villagers over to food. You'll be trading up to about anywhere from 70,000 to 100,000 food, and the goal with this is to build mostly Caroleans, artillery, and the occasional hussars, and then filter in the mercenaries. Since mercenaries are specifically only gold resources, that's why you keep all your villagers on gold for the majority of the fight until you see your food is getting low. So by filtering in your mercenaries, you'll be able to make the food that you did trade for last as long as possible. Again, you want to try to avoid spending any of the gold that you have, but it's okay to go and get any upgrades you find that takes food and wood. Anywhere between the 27-minute mark and the 27-minute mark and the 30-minute mark, you want to switch your factories over to gold to ensure that you also get extra gold for the trade. You should have more than enough wood if you change it over at 27, but sometimes you might want a little extra to ensure that you're not going broke on wood at the start of the fight. If you did change the factories over later, make sure you put a couple extra villagers on gold. The most important thing is still to have the extra gold. At this point, it is entirely your choice what you want to aim for. I personally prefer to have a higher health Carolean at the start than having case shot. So I'll focus the Carolean health and then the case shot before I go on to anything else, but ensure that you still have that one shipment prepared. You will be sending the trade card at around 35 to 36 minutes of the match before going into it. Once the shipment is done, you go ahead and you rush the rest of your upgrades as fast as possible and get all of your units out. The more time you give yourself, the better. When you are fighting, if the fight goes on a very long time, make sure you check on your torps from time to time, as you may run out of trees and you're going to have to rebuild your torps. Often natives is a good spot to build, as these usually aren't chopped and there's plenty to build on. But if the match lasts too long and you forget about the torps, it's a huge waste of resources, as you just have idle torps just sitting around, and every time you build a new one, you will get some berry bushes, and it'll help you a great deal later on. I personally prefer to send the shipment with 6 minutes left before the fight to make sure that I can get all the upgrades and I can get all my units out, as sometimes it is very close and you cannot get enough gold to finish getting all your units out. If you do choose to wait till the 39 minutes to send it, you will also be able to send the Mercenary card early and start the fight with the Mercenaries if you choose to, as it will not hurt your score too much. If you find yourself having trouble finding space, you can always delete the marketplace once you have all the upgrades, as well as the capital if you have all the upgrades as well. As you can see, I kept the one shipment like I said because we're getting very close to that time to send it. And if you end up forgetting it, you could end up not having the shipment ready to send the trade till it's too late. Again, you should have between 70,000 and 100,000 before the shipment goes through, depending on when you decide to send it. I wouldn't send it too much later after the 6-minute remaining mark, as you might not make enough units to defend your base at the start of the fight. Once you send the shipment, you still can't spend your gold, as you still want to continue to gather it because it doesn't hit instantly, so you want to just save up as much as possible. Once the shipment goes through, you're going to want to start doing all your upgrades, but you want to keep your factories on gold, as you're going to need it as soon as possible, as you'll find you need to upgrade every single thing possible. And as you can see, we have no gold and we traded for 100,000 food. So remember, all you need to do is upgrade the Hussars and the Karelians, and then the rest of your artillery. Make sure you do upgrade the mills as well before the fight. This way, if you find yourself in a pinch and need to upgrade the mills, they're already done and you can just switch your villagers over. As you can see, it takes a lot of time to get all these upgrades, and I haven't even sent any of the military units yet, which is why you want to try and send it as early as possible. Your villagers will still spend most of their time on the estates for the entirety of the fight, unless you see that your food is going down a lot faster than normal. Once you start getting low between 20 and 30,000, you're going to want to make sure you switch some villagers over. You can easily send the trade a little bit later, but I personally prefer to play it a little bit safer and make sure I can get all my units out. I like to start with 4 horse artillery, 4 culverines, and then 5 to 10 hussars, and the rest is Karelians. Once you get all your upgrades out and all your military out, you can go ahead and switch your factory back to wood or keep it on gold, however you personally prefer. You want to try and make sure you have some villagers near the front of your base for the fight. This way, if you are on a larger map, or if you are playing a 3v3 and the map is larger, you will have the space to, you'll have the villagers to build the forward base as you go. Now that I got them all out, I'm going to personally leave them on gold, as I have 7,000 wood as is, and the torps are still gathering for me. Now that that's going out, I'm going to go ahead and get the case shot, as I explained before. It will increase the strength of your artillery and get into position. I'm not going to put too much effort into getting into position, as it should not matter since it's a skirmish. And make sure, after all your military is out, you still get all your Minutemen for a little bit of an extra overpop and something to absorb the blow. And that is your general starting army. As you see, we got an extra minute till the match starts. We could have held off a little bit longer, not a big deal. Score should still be 220,000 to 240,000, depending on how lucky you are with your treasures, as well as when you do your trade. And if you are on a smaller map, you might want to have a mortar or two out and prepared for stopping the opponent's early building. You want to try and gather about anywhere between 10,000 and 20,000 spare gold before you start sending mercenaries. This way you don't have any problems getting your units out, because if you send the trade too late and you don't have any gold and they push you too fast, you won't have the gold to rebuild your army, which is why I personally prefer to send the trade early to ensure I've got a healthy amount of food and a healthy amount of gold going into the fight. Your main forces are going to be your Karelians, your Hussars, and then artillery, because your case shot should be a very strong artillery for Sweden. The Karelians have a bonus towards cavalry, and then you have your case shot will destroy any infantry coming your way. As you can see, we finished the boom with just over 220,000. Again, I do stream over on Twitch. Feel free to stop by, ask some questions, and join in on some matches.